The sky above the jungle moon was dark, with flashes of green lightning dancing in the clouds. Leora, an alien medic from the peaceful Eliari race, had never seen such a storm before. Her small scout ship shook violently as it entered the atmosphere. The controls blinked red. The engines roared louder than ever. She tried to correct the angle, but it was too late. The ship spun out of control and crashed into the thick jungle below with a deafening sound. Trees snapped like twigs. Metal tore apart. The ground shook. When Leora opened her eyes, the cockpit was half buried in dirt and smoke. Her arms hurt, her leg was cut, and her suit was torn. Alarms screamed, but she could barely hear them. She grabbed a small medical bag and crawled out of the wreckage. The jungle was silent. Too silent. Leora limped forward, her eyes scanning for shelter. She knew predators would come soon. She could feel it in the air. Her map showed a nearby cave, just half a kilometer west. She moved as fast as her injured leg would allow, using trees for support. Her soft blue skin was covered in dirt and blood, and every step felt heavier. Finally, she reached the cave. It was wide, deep, and dark, the perfect place to hide. She collapsed just inside the entrance, breathing hard. The cave was cold, but at least it was safe, for now. She didn't know how long she lay there, but time passed. Her body shook with pain, and her mind drifted in and out of sleep. She used her tools to clean her wounds, but her energy was fading fast. Then, a noise woke her, crunching leaves. Heavy steps. Something, or someone, was coming. Leora forced herself to sit up, her hand grabbing the small plasma tool from her belt. The cave's entrance lit up as a tall figure stepped in. He was not Eliari. He was not like any species she knew. He was a human. His clothes were torn, and his face was scratched. He had a rough beard, short dark hair, and carried a heavy backpack. His eyes scanned the cave quickly, and then fell on her. The two stared at each other in silence. She pointed her plasma tool at him. He raised both hands slowly, showing he wasn't a threat. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice calm but tired. Leora frowned. She didn't understand his full language, but she caught some of the words. The translator on her wrist beeped, trying to adjust. "You not enemy?" she asked slowly. He shook his head. "No. Name's Jace. I crashed too." She looked behind. Him. There was no ship, no light, just darkness. "You from Sky?" she asked. He nodded. "Old cargo hauler. Went down in flames 3 days ago." Jace slowly sat down across from her, dropping his bag with a sigh. He reached in and pulled out a small package. Food. He unwrapped it and took a bite. Then, without speaking, he tore it in half and offered the rest to her. Leora hesitated. Her stomach growled. Carefully, she took the food and bit into it. It was dry and strange, but it filled her belly. She nodded in thanks. "You injured?" he asked, pointing to her leg. She nodded. He pulled out a basic bandage and slid it toward her. She was surprised. Why would a stranger help her? Then the ground shook slightly. They both froze. A loud, distant growl echoed through the jungle. It wasn't a normal animal. It was something big and dangerous. Jace stood up, quietly moving to the cave entrance. He peered into the dark forest. The trees were still, but there was movement. A shape passed between them, large, fast, hunting. He turned back to her. "We stay quiet," he said firmly. Leora nodded, her heart pounding. She had come here to study planets, not fight monsters. She never expected to be trapped with a human in a dark cave, both hiding from something they couldn't see. But somehow, in this strange moment, she felt a little safer, because the human didn't look afraid. The jungle outside the cave was quiet, too quiet. Leora sat beside the fire Jace had carefully built using dry roots and sparks from a small tool. The warm light flickered across the rocky cave walls, and the shadows seemed to move like silent ghosts. Jace sat close to the entrance, watching the trees. He hadn't said much since the growl, but his eyes never stopped scanning the dark. Leora wrapped her arms around her legs. "What was that sound?" she asked softly. Jace didn't turn. "Not sure," he replied. "But it's big. Real big." She swallowed hard. "I thought this moon was uninhabited. No signs of large life." Jace finally looked at her. "Well, something tore through your ship like it was paper." Leora felt a chill. "You saw it?" "Just the wreckage. Claw marks, deep ones, and blood. Not all of it was yours." That made her shiver more than the cold. Something out there had attacked her ship after it crashed, and it was still nearby. "Do you think it's hunting us?" she asked. Jace nodded slowly. "Yes." Silence returned. The fire cracked softly. Leora glanced at Jace, noticing how calm he looked. "Tired, yes, but steady. You act like this is normal," she said. He gave a faint smile. "I've seen worse." "Worse than a giant jungle beast?" Jace looked into the fire for a moment. "Once, back on Earth, I got lost in a frozen mountain range. Something stalked me for 3 nights. I didn't sleep. Just kept moving. Kept surviving." Leora's eyes widened. "You lived?" He nodded. "Humans are stubborn. We don't give up easy." She believed him. Jace stood up and walked outside the cave entrance, crouching near the thick vines and leaves. Leora followed slowly, careful with her injured leg. He pointed toward the trees. "See that?" he whispered. She looked. The trees had long gashes in them, 3 straight lines, fresh, deep. Whatever made them had sharp claws and strength. "We need to move soon," he said. "If we stay in one place too long, it'll find us." Leora touched the claw marks. "What kind of creature does this?" "No idea," Jace replied. "But we need to prepare. If it comes, we fight." She looked at him, surprised. "With what? Your hands?" He gave her a serious look. "If I have to." Leora thought he was joking, but he didn't smile. He walked back into the cave and opened his pack. Inside were small tools, scraps of metal, wires, and a folded net. "Not much," he muttered, "but enough to make something." Over the next hour, Jace worked with quiet focus. He used a broken pipe from her ship and sharpened one end on the rocks. He tied a wire net between 2 sticks. He set traps near the cave's edge. Leora watched, amazed. "You've done this before?" "Too many times," he replied without looking up. "My old job involved bad places, dangerous places." "You were a soldier?" Jace shook his head. "Explorer. But in space, those are sometimes the same thing." Leora looked at the traps. "Do you think they'll work?" "They'll slow it down," Jace said. "Then I'll handle the rest." She looked at his hands, rough, scarred and steady. He was serious. That night, the jungle came alive again. Strange bird sounds echoed in the distance. Leaves rustled. And then, the same deep growl returned, closer than before. Leora's heart raced. The ground trembled. "It's coming," Jace whispered, standing slowly and grabbing his sharp metal spear. Leora backed up to the cave wall. Her hands trembled, but her eyes never left the entrance. Branches snapped. A shadow moved just beyond, the trees. Jace stood between her and the monster, weapon ready. He didn't wear armor. He had no shield, but his presence felt solid, unbreakable, like a wall. And then... silence again. The shadow disappeared. "It's watching us," Jace said. "Testing us." Leora stepped beside him. "Why not attack? Maybe it's smart. Maybe it wants us to run. But we won't," she said quietly. Jace looked at her and nodded. "No, we stand." The next morning, soft light filtered through the jungle canopy, painting the cave entrance in green and gold. Leora opened her eyes slowly. Her body still ached, but she had slept better than expected. Jace was already awake, sharpening the end of a stick with a piece of metal. His hands moved fast, smooth like he'd done this 1,000 times before. "Sleep well?" he asked without looking up. She nodded. "Better than last night." "Good. We'll need our strength." Leora looked outside the cave. The jungle looked calm again. No sign of the monster. No sound either. "Do you think it's gone?" she asked. Jace shook his head. "No, it's out there, watching, waiting." She didn't know how he could be so sure, but she believed him. His instincts had been right before. Leora sat beside him and began checking her small scanner. It was damaged, but it could still pick up strong energy signals. As it buzzed and blinked, something strange appeared on the screen. "There's movement," she said, "but it's not wild, it's controlled." Jace looked over her shoulder. "Like what?" "Like it's tracking us. Slowly. Carefully." He stood up and grabbed his spear. "Then it knows we're still here." Leora swallowed hard. "Should we run?" Jace looked into the trees. "No. If we run now, it will chase us. We need to see it first. Learn what we're up against." She frowned. "See it? You want to face it?" "Yeah," he said simply. "But not alone." Leora blinked. "I'm not a fighter. You're smart. You have tech. That's your strength. Mine is different." Leora didn't argue. He was right. She wasn't trained for combat. But together maybe they had a chance. They moved carefully through the jungle, staying low. Jace led the way, stopping often to check the ground. Leora noticed the way he moved. Quiet, aware, focused. Every footstep was careful. Soon they reached the crash site. Leora gasped. Her ship was even more destroyed than she remembered. The side was torn open. Burn marks and deep claw gouges were everywhere. But the strangest thing was the smell. A sharp, sour scent that didn't belong. Jace stepped closer to a piece of metal. "Blood," he said. She looked. Dark green stains covered the edge of the panel. "Yours?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, Elyari blood is blue." Then the monster was hurt. That gave her a little hope. It wasn't invincible. They continued exploring the area. Jace pointed at strange footprints. Large, four-toed, deep in the mud. "Still fresh," he whispered. Just then, a sharp snapping sound came from behind the wreck. They froze. Leora's heart pounded. Then she saw it. The creature stepped into the open. It was massive, at least 10 feet tall. Thick armor-like skin covered its body, dark gray with faint red veins. Its arms were long, ending in claws that looked like knives. Its face had no eyes, just a mouthful of jagged teeth. Leora stepped back, shocked. "That's not a natural creature." Jace didn't answer. He was staring at it, studying every move. The monster tilted its head. Then it roared, loud and deep. Birds flew from the trees. Jace grabbed Leora's arm. "Run!" They dashed through the jungle, weaving between trees and jumping over roots. The monster crashed through the trees behind them, fast and loud. One of Jace's traps, a wire tied to 2 trees, snapped closed and caught the beast's leg. It stumbled, growling, but kept coming. Jace turned and threw his sharpened spear. It hit the creature's shoulder but bounced off. The armor was too thick. "We need better weapons," Leora shouted. "Keep moving," Jace replied. They made it back to the cave, breathless and shaking. The monster stopped at the tree line, watching them. Jace stood tall, his chest rising and falling. "Now we've seen it. Now we plan." Leora sat down, heart still racing. "What is that thing?" Jace wiped sweat from his face. "I don't know, but it bleeds. And if it bleeds..." He looked straight at her. "We can beat it." The jungle was quiet again, but it was the kind of silence that warned of danger. The monster had disappeared into the trees, but both Jace and Leora knew it hadn't left for good. Inside the cave, Jace placed a large flat rock near the entrance and sat down. His face was serious. Leora sat across from him, trying to catch her breath. She looked at the deep scratches on the side of the cave wall. "It could have followed us," she said softly. "It did," Jace replied. "It just didn't attack yet. Why? It's watching, learning. Smart creatures test their prey before they strike." Leora leaned back against the cave wall. "Then we need to be smarter." Jace nodded and reached into his bag. He pulled out scraps of metal, wires, and small tools. Leora saw what he was doing. He was building something. Again. "You never—" "Stop moving," she said. "If I stop, I die," he replied. There was no fear in his voice, only focus, calm, like someone who had accepted danger a long time ago. Leora stood and walked to the edge of the cave. Her legs still hurt, but she could move now. The jungle ahead looked peaceful again, but she knew better. She turned back to him. "You've seen things like this before?" "Not exactly," he said. "But I've faced things with teeth, claws, anger, just not this big." "Back on Earth?" Jace nodded. "Earth has its own monsters. They just don't always have 4 arms." Leora sat down next to him. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" "Didn't have a choice. I grew up in a rough place. You learn fast when survival depends on it." She watched his hands work fast with the tools. "You're not like anyone I've met before." He gave her a small smile. "Most aliens say that." They sat in silence for a while. The fire crackled. Outside, a breeze moved the leaves. But underneath it all, there was still that tension. Like something was waiting to pounce. Suddenly, a branch snapped just outside the cave. Jace stood up quickly, grabbing his spear. He motioned for Leora to stay behind him. A shadow moved near the entrance, and then the creature appeared. This time, it didn't roar. It walked slowly, its claws dragging across the ground. It stood tall, muscles rippling under thick armor, its eyeless face turned toward Jace. Jace didn't back down. Leora held her breath. The monster stepped closer, and in one smooth motion, Jace leapt forward. He didn't wait. He ran straight at it. The two collided at the edge of the cave. Jace ducked under a claw and punched the creature in the side. It roared and swung its massive arm. Jace rolled under the blow and struck again, this time at the creature's leg joint. Leora watched in shock. Jace wasn't just fighting. He was reading the creature's movement. He was fast, too fast for something so heavy. Every punch had power behind it. The creature grabbed him with one hand and tried to slam him into a rock wall, but Jace twisted his body midair and kicked off the wall, freeing himself. Then, with a shout, he tackled the creature from behind. He wrapped his arm around its thick neck and began to pull. Leora had never seen such strength. This wasn't just survival. This was raw, human power. With a loud crack, the creature stumbled. Jace jumped off and kicked its leg out from under it. The beast hit the ground with a thud, but it wasn't over. The monster roared and grabbed Jace's leg, pulling him down. It raised one of its claws to strike. Leora couldn't just watch. She grabbed a long metal rod from the ground and ran forward. She slammed it into the creature's side. It flinched. That was enough. Jace twisted free, jumped on its back, and with both hands, bare hands, grabbed its lower jaw and pulled. Muscles bulged. Veins rose. His arms trembled, and then, with one final shout, he ripped the lower jaw free, the yo. Creature fell, twitching, groaning, alive but defeated. Jace stood over it, breathing heavily. Blood ran down his arm, his hands were shaking, but he didn't fall. Leora stared at him, speechless. "You," she whispered, "you fought it." "With your hands." He turned slowly. "Told you, if it bleeds, we can beat it." The cave was quiet again, but the air still felt heavy. The creature lay near the entrance, defeated, its body twitching now and then. Blood from its jaw had soaked into the dirt. Jace sat on a rock, breathing slowly. His shirt was torn, and blood covered his arms and chest. His face was pale, but his eyes were sharp. Leora moved quickly, opening her small medical kit. She knelt beside him. "Let me see your arms." she said gently. He didn't argue. He stretched out his arms, and she cleaned the wounds with care. His skin was bruised, his muscles strained, but nothing was broken. You were lucky, she said softly. He gave a tired smile. Wasn't luck, just timing. Leora wrapped a clean bandage around his arm. That thing was stronger than any animal I've studied, but you fought it like it was nothing. Jace looked at her, his voice low. It wasn't nothing. It almost got me. She paused, then looked directly at him. You shouldn't be able to do that. Not without armor, not without weapons. What are you, Jace? He leaned back against the wall and let out a deep breath. Just human. That's not a full answer. He looked at the cave ceiling for a moment, then spoke. You ever study Earth's environment? She nodded. Some. Your planet is considered difficult. That's one way to put it, he said. Everything on Earth fights to live. Nature doesn't show mercy. Cold, heat, storms, predators. You either learn to survive, or you don't. Leora listened carefully. Humans evolved in that chaos, Jace continued. Our bodies adapt fast. Our muscles repair quickly. When we're in danger, our minds go sharp, our hearts pump harder, and we fight with everything we've got. She raised her eyebrows. That's extreme. It has to be, he said. We were never the strongest, never the fastest, but we're the most stubborn. That's what keeps us alive. Leora sat beside him. That explains your strength. But there's more, isn't there? He shrugged. Maybe. Earth government used to send explorers to unknown planets, not soldiers, just people who could think fast and survive. I was one of them. So you were trained? Yes, he said. But not in fancy weapons or tech, just how to stay alive no matter. What? She looked at his hands. Scarred. Calloused. Built from years of struggle. That's why you didn't run. Running doesn't help, he said. Facing fear does. Leora stayed silent for a moment, then stood and walked to her broken scanner. She turned it on and pulled up some old files on human biology. The information surprised her. Dense bone structure, she read. Muscle fiber composition, double the strength of Elyari average. Adrenaline spikes increase power and speed during stress. She turned to look at him. You're built for war. Jace shook his head. We're built for survival. Big difference. She smiled slightly. Maybe, but out here, it feels the same. They spent the next hour working together. Jace cleaned the rest of his wounds while Leora repaired her scanner. They talked less, but something had changed between them. Respect. Later, as the sun began to set, Leora sat near the entrance and watched the jungle. Birds chirped softly in the distance. The peace felt strange after such violence. Jace walked over and handed her a small object. It was a blade, carefully made from scrap metal and wrapped with cloth for grip. For you, he said. She looked at it, confused. Why? In case I don't make it next time, he said. You'll need it. Her eyes widened. Don't say that. I'm just being ready. She held the blade tightly. We're both making it out of here. He nodded. Then we better be prepared. That wasn't the only creature on this moon. Leora's heart sank. There's more? Maybe, he said. That one was hunting alone. But the marks we saw near your ship, they were from more than one. She looked into the jungle, now darker and deeper than before. If they come. Again, she said quietly, we fight together. Jace looked at her and smiled. Good, because I don't give up. Night fell over the jungle moon like a dark blanket. The wind whispered through the trees, and the stars above were faint behind the thick clouds. Inside the cave, the firelight flickered across stone walls, casting long shadows. Jace sat sharpening a spear, his eyes focused and alert. Leora sat across from him, quietly adjusting the handle on the metal blade he had made for her. The silence between them was not fear. It was focus. Both knew what was coming. Earlier that evening, Leora's scanner had picked up several moving life forms heading toward their position, large, heavy, and fast. 3, she had said. At least 3 creatures. Same size as the last one. Jace had simply nodded. Then this time we fight smart. He had spent hours outside, setting up more traps, sharpened sticks, nets, and hidden wires. Leora had helped, despite her still healing leg. Every step in the mud, every knot they tied, reminded them this was their last chance. Now the jungle was quiet again. Too quiet. Leora's ears twitched slightly. Do you hear that? Jace stood up slowly. His face was calm, but his body was ready. The ground trembled. Then it began. A loud roar tore through the trees deeper than before. Leaves shook, branches snapped, and from the shadows 3 creatures appeared. Taller, faster, and even more armored than the first. They charged toward the cave. Jace didn't wait. Now, he shouted. One of the hidden traps triggered. A wire snapped tight, launching a net into the air. It caught the lead creature's leg, pulling it down. The second one jumped over it, but ran into a row of sharpened spikes. It screamed in pain. The third one reached the cave entrance. Jace met it head-on. He slammed his shoulder into its chest, knocking it back just enough. Then he swung his spear, striking under its arm, just below the armor. It howled, claws swinging wildly. Leora ran forward, holding her blade tightly. Her heart pounded, but she didn't stop. The creature saw her and roared, reaching out to grab her. She ducked low and slashed at its leg. The blade cut deep. Jace took the chance and jumped on its back, wrapping one arm around its throat and using his other hand to strike the weak points behind its head. The creature dropped to its knees. Jace yelled, "Leora, finish it!" Without thinking, she drove her blade into the back of its neck. The monster twitched, then fell. One down. The second creature, wounded from the spikes, limped forward in rage. It grabbed a fallen tree and hurled it at them. Jace pushed Leora out of the way and rolled to the side. The tree slammed into the cave wall, cracking the stone. Leora got up quickly, pulling Jace with her. "We can't hold them off here," she shouted. He nodded. "Then we take the fight to them." They ran into the jungle, using the traps as cover. The third creature, now free from the net, chased them through the dark trees. Another trap triggered. A spiked branch swung down and hit it in the face. It screeched and fell back. Jace turned around and ran straight at it. He jumped and punched it across the jaw. It swung back, clawing at his chest, but he blocked with his arm and slammed his elbow into its throat. Leora came from behind and stabbed, again. Together they brought the second beast down, but the first creature, the largest, was still alive and angry. It roared louder than ever and charged. Jace stood still, breathing deep. Leora screamed, "Jace, move!" But he didn't. He let the creature come close. Then, at the last moment, he leapt forward, grabbed its arm, and twisted. The beast fell forward. Jace climbed its back and began punching with everything he had, his fists slamming into armor, over and over. He found the cracks, the weak points. Blood sprayed, but he didn't stop. Leora watched in shock as he used nothing but his bare hands. With one final hit, the creature stopped moving. Silence. Jace rolled off the monster, breathing hard. His face was bruised, his knuckles bleeding. Leora ran to him. "Are you okay?" He smiled faintly. "I think that's all of them." She helped him sit up. You did it." "We did," he corrected. She looked at the destroyed monsters, then at the human beside her. "You're not just strong," she whispered. "You're something else." Jace looked up at the stars. "Just human." The jungle was calm again, the battle over. The 3 monstrous creatures lay still on the ground, their heavy breathing ceased. The air smelled of wet earth and burnt leaves. Leora and Jace sat together near the cave entrance, tired but alive. Jace's wounds were painful, but his spirit was strong. Leora carefully wrapped his arm with clean cloth, her hands gentle and steady. "I don't know how you did it," she said softly, looking into his tired eyes. "You fought those monsters with Your bare hands, it was like watching a force of nature. Jace chuckled weakly. Maybe humans are made for moments like these. Just then a soft buzzing sound came from the distance. Leora's scanner beeped urgently. "Ships," she whispered. "They're coming." Jace stood up, rubbing his sore muscles. Rescue? Maybe. Or something worse. The jungle trees parted as a small squad of Eliari ships descended, shining lights cutting through the dark. Alien officers in sleek armor rushed forward, scanning the scene. One officer approached quickly, eyes sharp and suspicious. "Who are you?" she demanded, pointing at Jace. Leora stepped forward. "He is the one who defeated the monsters. Alone." The young officer frowned. "A lone human? Impossible." Jace smiled tiredly. "I'm real." The officers inspected the creatures, nodding with concern. "These monsters were a serious threat," one said. "But you, human, have changed the outcome." Leora watched as the aliens helped Jace onto a stretcher. Despite his injuries, he made jokes with the medics, his spirit unbroken. As the Eliari commander prepared to take them away, she asked Leora quietly, "How did he do it?" Leora looked at Jace, then back at the commander. "Because he's human. That's all you need to know." On the ship, Leora sat beside Jace. The stars stretched endlessly outside the window. He looked over at her and smiled. "You think I'm something special?" She shook her head. "No, you're exactly what the universe needs." Jace laughed softly. "Maybe Earth isn't so weak after all." Leora reached out and took his hand. "No, you're not just strong. You are hope." As the ship left the jungle moon behind, Leora knew the universe had just witnessed something incredible. A human's strength, courage, and heart had changed everything, and she would never forget it.